Welcome back. It's another edition of the Washcast. I know it's been a minute. I'm trying to get back on the train of getting content out regularly and doing regular shows, but life. So we're going to jump right into it tonight. I'm not going to give you a monologue. With me tonight, I have a newer friend. I was just on his show a week or two ago. Everything's kind of blurring together anymore, but you know how it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him as the Front Porch Conservative. What's going on, Brian? How are you?
I am fantastic. Hello to everybody in the Washcast audience. It is an absolute pleasure to be here, getting back in the saddle from having a few days of rest and relaxation, and glad to be here and ready to talk about whatever you want to get into, or
Well,
stuff we hadn't planned on getting into, or go down a rabbit hole, whatever works.
oh, the rabbit hole is bound to happen. That's all I'm saying. It's bound to happen because we're
You
gonna
know
we're
that's
gonna
right.
touch on some current events here in a little bit. But first
All
and
right.
foremost, uh, tell everybody in the audience that may not know you. I'm sure we have similar viewer bases, but tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Well, my name is Brian Trippett. I am born and bred in West Virginia, and as I jokingly tell people all the time, American by nationality, Southerner by birth, and West Virginian by the grace of God. I've grown up here all my life. I've gone away to college at various places. Came back here in 2000. Been here ever since. I work in the financial industry for a mortgage company. I'll just leave it at that, lest we get into any complications there. I've been in the financial industry off and on all my life, occupationally, with the exception of a few years and a few different stints. So I've had my hands and fingers, numbers, and money for years. I have been I guess you call a social media lurker for a number of years until about a year or so ago, a couple of years ago now. And now I've taken the plunge. I've got a social media channel of my own under my name, the Front Porch Conservative, but it may soon be rebranded at the recommendation of my audience because it's growing, but not quite the way I'd like. But that's okay. That's all right. I do videos. I do live streams. I have guests. I do interviews, and it's been an absolutely amazing and wonderful. And I tell you what, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And this is no BS on my part. As far as I'm concerned, I have got the best daggone audience on the internet. They are smart as a whip. They keep me up on everything. They keep me on my toes. They challenge me on my BS sometimes when I don't think I'm in the middle of saying BS, but they challenge me anyway. And I love what I do, and I want to, the joke I have with my audience is it's a going little concern. I want to see it going big concern. Now, I'm not going to lie, because I would love to do this full time. I really would. If I could make it
I bet.
happen, the money worked right, I'd love to do this full time. I mean, my heroes growing up were all the old talk radio guys. Rush
Okay.
Limbaugh, G. Gordon Liddy, Ken Hamlin, um, on and on and on. I could go on. Billy Cunning, and Billy's still out there doing his thing out of Cincinnati. God love him. But yeah, all my heroes
Yeah.
are all the old talk radio guys. And if I can bring,
No nighttime hosts, no Johnny Carsons or
well, now funny you say that because I loved Carson. If I find a clip of Carson on YouTube or any place else, I will watch it. Because
oh yeah.
he had, in my book, the best way of handling politics and comedy together. And and we can get into this at some point, and I'll just give my short answer for it. Johnny was an equal opportunity offender.
Oh
He
yeah.
didn't care. Democrat, Republican, it didn't matter to him. He just let everybody have it. And and Rush Limbaugh commented on something about Carson. That's very true. What made Johnny so good is there was always an element of truth to every joke he told, and it made it funny. Whereas you've
Yep.
got guys like Kimmel and Colbert and you know Fallon to a certain extent, although he's getting away from it. But you got all these late night hosts now. They're just to one degree or another, they've got a case of TDS, and
Mhm.
it's just
Yep.
yeah, it's like I don't want
The
to watch.
only one that really still manages to do an okay job with it, and again, I don't know that necessarily that it's TDS or that it's just a difference in opinion. But Jon Stewart still does a fantastic job. Even though he's as far left as he is, he's consistent and he's not afraid to call out the hypocrisy on his side as well. Same thing with Bill Maher.
Mm-hmm. Well, but that's just it, and you just hit on it. They're not afraid to call out their own side. I mean, look, I may disagree with Jon Stewart on a crap pile of things, and probably do. Yep. But Stewart is at least willing to have an honest conversation, and he's willing to make fun of himself. Same thing with Bill Maher. Okay, they might be liberals, but they're old school lefties. Okay, they still, like to go to the point about Johnny Carson. There's an element of truth in the jokes they make. Yep. I mean, Bill Maher's monologues are funny as all get out. They really are. Great. The opening show, they're great. They're absolutely fantastic. And it's just I do agree with you. Maher and Stewart are probably two of the last of the really good ones in that genre.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's funny because Jon Stewart used to be one of my favorites because he's genuinely funny.
Yeah.
And now I've pivoted more towards these guys. Like, I think Steven Crowder does a fantastic job with it.
Crowder does a good job.
Kind of blending the two. There aren't a lot of folks doing that. I mean, Sean is a prime example of somebody that is criminally underfollowed.
Oh, absolutely.
My God, hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. But you don't see people that are doing it honestly anymore.
No,
they're always it's always one-sided because they want to grift off the audience.
Yeah. No, I agree. And by the way, and I know that your audience is probably very well familiar, but if there are folks out there watching this live stream tonight and you're wondering who we're referring to, the third Railify, Sean, our Canadian brother up there, if you're not following him or give him a sub, for the love of God, you are missing out, because I'm telling you, when that lunatic cuts loose, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. I mean, God love him. No. It's on, especially if he gets on a rant. If he gets on a rant, a Canadian styled rant, because let's be honest, there's polite and then there's Canadian polite. Okay. No, I mean it's true.
It's like Minnesota nice.
It's like Minnesota nice. Y'all know I'm speaking the truth up there. Y'all people north of the border, I'm right. Y'all are just bad about this. Y'all get PO'd about something, but you don't say you're PO'd. You're like, well, I'm not sure we agree with you. That's what I mean by Canadian nice. But Sean has no such filter. No. It goes from his gut to his brain and out his mouth. There ain't nothing stopping it. And when he gets on a Canadian styled rant, may God help you if you're on the receiving end of it. That's all. So yes, give that boy a sub. Follow him wherever you can. He's absolutely gloriously funny. So
I think he's going to take off. I really do. I think he's going to take off.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just that right moment.
By the by, did you see that there is rumor afoot north of the border that Trudeau may be on his way out within the next few days?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. I think. Well, and we're seeing it kind of all over the world too. I mean, granted, he's got a lot of opposition within his own party,
right?
And I think we're starting to see with him another kind of Biden scenario where I think they know that he's not going to win another election,
right?
So they're trying to get him out while they can. But you're seeing this with a lot of Western countries. France's government collapsed, right? And now just today, Germany's government collapsed with a no confidence vote there. Oh. So the EU is feeling it. We're starting to see Canada now that is kind of on the brink of that zero confidence. And we are sitting here with a lame duck waiting for this new administration.
Okay, I thank you for that, because I have sort of been out of the loop for the past few days, and I wasn't aware that because I mean Scholz, I should say, who is the prime minister of Germany, I knew has been like wretchedly unpopular over there, and I mean the German ruling class has been doing everything by hook and crook to keep. There's a right-wing populist party over there called AfD. They have been doing everything in their power to keep AfD from ascending naturally to the top of the German political structure. But now that there's a no confidence vote, it may be no stopping them now. But again, if the Germans pull anything like the French, we'll see what happens here. But this is amazing.
So
Oh
this
my
is this
goodness.
is what we're seeing. The vote comes after the collapse, and an early election will now be held on the 23rd of February, 2025. I
Baby.
mean, 394 to 207 to 130. Woo! That's nasty.
Yeah, where I come from,
Absolutely nasty.
that's what you call an ass kicking. That's
Yeah.
what you call an ass kicking.
I mean, that if you needed any more proof that Germans are fed up with their government, um, well, I think you've got it
Well,
right
but I
there.
mean, it's funny you bring that up because not that every nation is the same in terms of the issues that they're either frustrated with or they're aggravated by or they're talking about, but there seems like there's a set of common threads that are running through these elections around the world. You have immigration to one degree or another is driving a lot of this. How do we handle immigrants coming into our country, our national identity, our national sovereignty? If we're going to let these folks come in, who's paying for them? Why are they getting more than we, the
I'm a
citizens
Fed,
of the country?
apparently.
Yeah,
We're Feds.
I saw. Oh, we're fed. Oh, we're fed. No, I am anything but a Fed. No, no,
Right?
quite the opposite.
I
Give
take that as
give
an
them
insult. Them's just fighting words.
give them das Boot. Mister Scott Awesome says. Well, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Give them
Well,
das
yeah,
Boot up die Boot, if as the
yeah.
Germans say. But I saw Carl Benjamin of the Lotus Eaters the other day had this post on Twitter. It was like 8 or 9 minutes long, and I just couldn't stop watching it. And Carl, I mean, if you know anything about the Lotus Eaters podcast, those, and by the way, again, forgive me if I name drop here on Robert's channel,
No,
but
do it. That's what this is
but
all about. We create an
if
ecosystem.
if you are out there and you're trying to get a feel for what's going on in certain countries around the world, I recommend highly, especially when it comes to British politics, you need to be following the Lotus Eaters podcast because Carl Benjamin has built himself and those cats have built themselves just an amazing organization online. But Carl's sitting there ranting for like 8 or 9 minutes. The frustration of the average British citizen. He's like, here I am, reading books every day. I'm studying things. I'm learning. I'm trying to grow this channel. And I walk down to my local cafe, and there are 2 Somali immigrants there drinking coffee and doing nothing else productive. They're just sitting there having a coffee, as the British would
On the
call it.
government's dime, probably.
On the government, no, worst of all, on his dime, and he knows it. And every British citizen that feels just like him is that way. But it's gotten so bad in Britain, if you try to say that, they will get you arrested for it. I mean, believe me, we got all kinds of problems over here. But for my brothers and sisters over there in Britain, and I've got a few of them in my audience, Jardom, I'm thinking of you, my friend. I mean, y'all over there, I am praying to God that Keir Starmer is as big an idiot as I think he is as prime minister. He's going to screw up the country that badly, and you guys get an election and get him out of there. I don't know if you
Well,
get Reform Party or not, but get him out.
so if for those that are not that or don't believe or are not familiar with what is happening over in the UK, here's a prime example of it. Man arrested at 4 a.m. for posting that he dislikes Palestinian flags everywhere.
It's a bill to post that you do not attend any events involved with Palestine, okay? The reasons why we did this is on the 17th of the 10th of 2023, on Bethel Green Road at 10:04.
Wait a minute.
You were witness to saying, obviously,
What just happened?
people, while they're over here.
Yeah, I can hear the sound, but I can't see the picture.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Take him. Disgusting. He's a disgusting. Absolute. I'm a stage 4 cancer patient and I need to be make a scene of shooting. Shooters make the scene. You're arresting him because he said something in his face. Because he mentioned Palestine.
They're walking him out of his apartment building for saying that he dislikes the Palestinian flags everywhere. You had the
Jeez.
video of the teacher that was arrested in somewhere in the UK for refusing to acknowledge gender ideology in a classroom. Like, they are going full blown Orwell in the
Yeah.
United Kingdom.
Yeah,
And it's bad enough that they've already been taken over.
Yeah, and the irony of it is, to me, is that Great Britain 70 or 80 years ago was the last vestige of freedom on the European continent, fighting against the very thing that they have now become. That's the part to me that just blows my mind. It's like, do y'all not realize how close you are to basically becoming what Adolf Hitler wanted to turn you into? And you're
Thank
doing
you.
it on your own. You know?
Yeah, it's insanity. It's pure fucking insanity.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that all over Europe. I mean, like you mentioned, every single election that's happening, the number one topic is immigration. I mean,
Yeah.
look at what the hell, Tommy Robinson. He was just thrown in jail for airing a documentary that the government told him he wasn't allowed to air. What happened to free speech? That wasn't supposed to just be an American thing. That was supposed to be just a Western thing. Everywhere had it.
Well, I mean, and you know, but and here we go jumping around on the lily pads. You
Right.
know, if ever there's an argument why the United States should withdraw from NATO, it's the way Europe acts toward its citizens, because we have reached the point that we don't agree on the principles anymore. We don't. I
No.
mean,
No.
when you've got nations threatening people like Elon Musk, who is a U.S. citizen, by the way, he holds dual citizenship between South Africa and the U.S., threatening him because of his politics. When you have free speech being shut down in Great Britain, the mother country, if I may use that term, when you have, you know, Americans, you know, at various places around the world, I mean, to me, the NATO alliance is no longer an alliance. It's a freeloading society where we're footing the bill for everybody else's meal ticket. And I'm like, nope, it's
That's
time
it.
to bring this to a stop.
Well, and not
Absolutely.
just that, but you know, I ultimately, maybe I'm a little selfish in this respect, but I look at the situation with the war in Ukraine as a prime example.
Oh, yeah.
Let's be honest. Europe has a lot more to fear and a lot more to worry about than we do here. If Europe, if Poland and everywhere else is worried about Russia taking over, okay, fine. Guess what? That's your battle. I'm across the pond, safe and sound. They're not fucking with us. We've got the most advanced defense system in the fucking world. Let it go. It's like, at the end of the day, Trump brought up a perfect example when he was talking about, you had Taliban here and you had ISIS here, and they're fighting each other. And I said, wait a minute, they're fighting each other. Why are we getting in the middle of this? Let Europe handle their own shit. That's not a concern for us.
Well, and this goes back to something, you know, go back over 200 years ago when George Washington left office at the end of his presidency, and he said, "Do not get entangled in matters going on in Europe." And I mean, for example, go back to World War One. Okay, why was there a First World War? Well, the Archduke Ferdinand was shot, and there are treaties and alliances and marriages between countries. Everybody got sucked into the vortex. We get into it because of the sinking of the Lusitania, which, okay, we can make an argument about whether that was okay, but we get into it, and then we're involved in a world war. We get a second world war, and this is what Washington was trying to warn everybody about. It's like, look, you let Europe settle Europe. Okay, y'all do you. We'll be all right over here on the other side of the ocean doing our thing. Yes, we know we're going to do some trading with you and we're going to do some things with you. But as far as the military stuff, you guys sort it out. That's your continent and your problem. And people can say, well, you're being isolationist. No. Not isolationist. Self-interested. Not isolationist. When I can take care of my own first, then I'm going to worry about you. Okay. And only will I worry about you if it starts interfering with my national self-interest. If it doesn't interfere with my national self-interest, You go your way, I'll go mine. That's
Yep.
simple.
And it's so interesting to me. One little tiny detail that I think a lot of people overlook is that since the United States kind of became an interventionist with their foreign policy, that's when they changed the name from the Department of War to the Department of Defense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's that little weird detail, like, things like that. But again, it comes back to this idea of let Europe fight its own battles.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, our involvement has now put us in some very risky territory.
Yeah.
Which this is, the rabbit hole that I said we were going to go down. And I wasn't planning on doing it this early, but we're going to do it anyway, because
Yeah.
we brought up the war in Ukraine and the conflict. The issue that I'm seeing now is that our interventionist policy, and especially after World War II, has led to a pretty scary situation. The drones that have been flying around.
Mm-hmm.
There was a video, and I know some of the folks in the chat have seen this, but this is from a gentleman that works for a drone manufacturer explaining the situation with the drones. It says the only reason to fly drones at night is to look for something. Suggests the New Jersey drones could be looking for a nuclear bomb from Ukraine. Back in the 1980s, Reagan had dismantled the nuclear program. I believe there were over 80 nuclear warheads that were in Ukraine that came up missing. Spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise an alarm to the highest levels of our government, which they had their ears closed about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on. He physically touched this warhead that was left over from Ukraine, and he knew that thing was headed towards the United States. This is about a 9-minute video, but I want to play the entire thing for the audience that hasn't seen it.
Yeah. That's
So,
fine.
have you seen this video, Brian?
I can stand watching it again. I had a friend of mine send it to me. I watched bits and pieces of it, but yeah, I'll be happy to watch again. That's fine.
Hey everyone, my name is John Ferguson. I'm the CEO of Saxon Aerospace here in Wichita, Kansas. I'm not normally a TikTok kind of a guy. I like watching this stuff every once in a while. But I'm a manufacturer of unmanned aircraft, military grade unmanned aircraft, as you can see one of my systems here. There's all of these mysterious drones going on off the East Coast, and as a professional, as a subject matter expert, I wanted to give you all my opinion on what I think could be going on with these drones. I don't particularly believe that these have a nefarious intent. I could be wrong, but I want to give you the truth and what I believe. It's my own opinion, and I've not bounced this off of anybody. So, if you think it's bullshit, whatever, that's cool. I don't want to spread misinformation, as we know that there's a lot of that going around. But anyway, back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan had dismantled the nuclear program, and there were, with Russia, there were countless nuclear missiles that were disarmed and disposed of. Well, there were over 80, I believe. There were over 80 nuclear warheads that were in Ukraine that came up missing. Okay. Uh, we don't know where they are. Maybe somebody does, but nobody really knows where these are. And I speak with some pretty high level government officials on this stuff, and it seems as though that is the case. So I spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise an alarm to the highest levels of our government, which they had their ears closed, about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on. He physically touched this warhead that was left over from Ukraine. And he knew that that thing was headed towards the United States. Okay. That is a very serious deal. And everyone knows that the United States government, this administration, is pushing to get into a war with Russia. We all know that. We all feel it. We all see it. Okay. Well, back up a few years. Do y'all remember when those drones were mysteriously flying across the Interstate 70 corridor from Colorado up into Nebraska, down here into Kansas, and out into Missouri? Well, it was believed that those drones were looking for radioactive material because there had been some material that come up missing here in the United States, and they felt like it was uh, high probability that the nuclear or the radioactive material would be taken along the Interstate 70 corridor, heading east or west or south. So, from what we understand, they were out there trying to find this radioactive material. Now, drones, they have no reason to be in the air at night unless you're doing some type of ISR work, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, looking for bad guys or looking for uh, um, a victim, a search and rescue victim, or law enforcement, or some type of military um, project, right? There's no reason for a drone to be flying at night, really. Okay. Because they don't see shit. So, unless you have thermal optics, drones really don't see stuff. You need to do mapping during the day. If you're going to do farming stuff, mostly do it during the day. The only reason why you would ever fly an aircraft, an unmanned aircraft at night, is if you're looking for something, whether it be a person or trying to smell gas. We have methane gas detection systems uh, that can detect gas leaks in pipelines. You really wouldn't use thermal optics for trying to find gas leaks, just simply because the only way you're actually going to find a gas leak with thermal optics is if the gas leak is aggressive enough that it has a difference in temperature, because thermal imaging, it creates a digital image based off of the temperature variance. So whatever is different in temperature, it creates an image. Usually gas leaks so slow that it goes quickly into ambient before you can even see it. So we have special sensors that can detect gas leaks. We also have special sensors that can detect radioactive material. So with this gentleman that I had spoken with, who was trying to raise the alarm to try to get somebody in the government to say, hey, we need to work together to go try to find this nuclear warhead, none of that ever happened. They knew that warhead was on its way to the United States. That's all that ever came of it. Nothing ever happened. This government did not do anything at all to help this gentleman raise the alarm and raise awareness that there is a very deadly weapon on its way to the United States. It's out there. Nobody knows where it's at now. It left Europe. Now it's gone. So my own guess, is that these drones are not nefarious in intent. If they are, they are, but I doubt it. But if they are drones, the only reason why they would be flying and flying that low is because they're trying to smell something on the ground. That's it. There's no other reason for a drone to be flying in the air other than to piss a bunch of people off at night. That's it. So my belief is they're trying to smell something on the ground, gas leaks, radioactive material, whatever. So, and do I think that that they're coming up out of the ocean? No, I don't think so. Drones that are multi-copter type drones, not the the fixed wing aircraft that look like regular airplanes, but the multi-copters, they only have so much battery life. They have hybrid versions that are gas powered with electric, but those can still only fly for a short period of time. There's no way in hell that any drone is going to go miles off the coast as a multicopter and fly into the interior of the United States and do a bunch of work. and then turn around and fly back. It's just physics will not allow that to happen. So these drones, I believe, are launched from a location that nobody knows, but I do believe that they're flying low enough that they're just trying to sniff the ground and try to find something. So again, I hate to be a pessimist or a guy that thinks, directly to the negative. However, I know as a professional, I mean, we build professional stuff for the military. I believe that they're actually out there trying to smell something that's very important. So anyway, let me know what you think of this video. I'm not trying to gaslight. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just trying to let people know that this is a serious deal. Um, it's only serious for what the potential could be, or for what the potential is.
So, first and foremost, if the guy is anywhere in the realm of right, I hope he left a note that he was not suicidal. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no other theory that makes sense other than they're scanning for something.
Well,
Why else would you have drones up all the time that way?
Well, let's go with process of elimination and start with a simple question. Who do these drones belong to? Well, it doesn't seem they belong to the state of New Jersey, because New Jersey is looking at the feds going, you guys want to explain to us what the hell these are? Because they're not ours. They're not belong to the state of New York, because New York would have claimed them and said, well, okay, look, sorry for the confusion, guys, but, we're currently testing some drones, for this particular purpose. Okay. That would have, and even, and let's just take it one step further. If these drones did belong to New Jersey or New York and the feds weren't aware of it, the feds would have been the first one to shoot them down. So it doesn't belong to any of our states. Okay. It doesn't belong to any of our states. All right. Doesn't seem to belong to a foreign country, because, we took forever and a blue day shooting down a Chinese weather balloon, allegedly weather balloon. But at some point, if it belongs to a foreign country, especially given the fact that it's over top military installations, we'd have shot these things down immediately. Okay. We didn't do that. So it doesn't seem to belong to a foreign country, doesn't belong to any of the states, doesn't seem to belong to a private individual, because if it did belong to a private individual, the feds or the states would have been up their rear end saying, what the hell are you doing flying these damn things, scaring everybody the hell to death? Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't belong to a state, doesn't belong to a foreign country, doesn't belong to an individual here in the United States. Well, that leaves only one possibility. Well, two.
It belongs to the feds.
Or aliens. And I think aliens are kind of, that's not alien. We know these are man-made drones. We know they're man-made drones, not aliens. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, all right. We now have a pretty good idea who it is. That gets to the next question. Why? What are you doing with them? And we were talking about this backstage. If the feds came out tomorrow and said, look, folks, these are ours. We are using them for a specific purpose. However, we're in the middle of something pretty sensitive right now. And although it might be hard for y'all to do, you got to kind of give us some leeway on this. We're doing this for a good reason. We'll let you know what's going on after we get this thing squared away. But we'll tell you. I mean, even Trump today, down at Mar-a-Lago, that press conference, made the statement. Yes, they will. Look, the feds know exactly what this is all about. His statement to the press today was very interesting in what he said and what he didn't say. I mean, he gets asked the question, were you given a national security briefing on this? He says, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, interesting. So, I mean, I'm like you. They're looking for something. The question is what? But the thing that bugs me is, look, do I expect you to tell me if this is this highly sensitive a security issue as some of us think? Okay. All right, then I can understand you not telling me everything right now, because it's like you said backstage, we're going to start a panic here. Okay.
Yep.
On the other hand, we're the American people. We've survived God knows how many wars, natural disasters, plagues, disease. I mean, we're kind of a tough bunch.
Right.
Play straight with us, man. Just tell us what's going on. You know, not necessarily everything, but just play straight with the American people. Because the longer the Feds stay silent on this, the more they're going to feed, the frenzy. I mean, people are going to say, "Oh, you're feeding the conspiracy." No one's trying to be conspiratorial here. We just want somebody to tell us what the hell's going on, which is a reasonable expectation.
Which, they're making the situation worse by not just telling people what's going on, because look at this. This was posted by Raw's Alerts earlier, and it cracked me up. New York police recovered a massive drone abandoned in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. A video shows an NYPD officer holding the large aircraft, which appears to measure over 5 feet in diameter. Officers found the drone on a sidewalk after responding to an emailed tip. This is important. During the investigation, a passerby mentioned working in the building housing the drone's manufacturer, Amaji Inc. Amaji CEO Shang-Hoon Wu later confirmed the drone belonged to the company, explaining it had been left on the sidewalk after a company party about a month ago. Officers found the drone on a sidewalk after responding to an emailed tip, left on the sidewalk after a company party about a month ago. You're telling me that this drone sat on a sidewalk for a month and nobody reported it until now? And nobody stole it? Like, listen, it's a $40,000 drone. You have so many options. You could have had the immigrants that took it. You could have had some jabronis from the hood that needed to make a quick buck. You could have, literally anybody. NYPD didn't, do one of their little roll arounds and go, "Hey, what the fuck is that gigantic drone doing sitting on the side?" A month.
You could have had
fucking dumb do these people think we are?
You could have had Mike or Paulie or the Situation from Jersey Shore drive across the river. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. And here's the other thing too. You're going to have people who are, shall we say, provocateurs.
That's my aunt. Retired DC police captain just said bullshit.
Yeah.
Thank
agreed.
you, Aunt Paula. Thank you.
You're gonna have some provocateurs out there trying to stir a stink, and they're gonna start playing pranks with people and start playing on everybody's fears. The feds, they may not like doing it at this stage. They may not want to do it at this stage. But for the peace of mind of the American people, as much as they can provide it in this situation, they need to start talking. Okay? Tell us what's going on.
As much
as you can.
Personally, I would like to know if they're looking for a dirty bomb. Okay, number one. I would like to know.
Yeah.
Number two, what kind of panic could you possibly cause? Our side, the conservative side, has been doomsday prepping for years.
Yep.
For years.
Yep.
The pantries are stocked. No, but at this point, it's not a panic thing. I think it's they don't want the right to go. I fucking told you.
Well, but this
they also don't want to admit the border crisis caused this, most likely.
Well, but this gets to something else, and it kind of depends upon how the incoming Trump administration wants to play this. I don't think, because don't get me wrong, conservatives or people on the political right have been very observant where the Biden administration is concerned. I guess in some cases almost too observant. But I don't think anybody has any idea the extent of the level of incompetence, of carelessness, of sheer indifference that these people who have administered the federal government for the past 4 years, I don't think anybody has any idea the depths of the things I just mentioned. And if Trump and his people really want to push it, they could demonstrate to God and everybody just how terrible the Democrats have been at governance over the past 4 years and put them out in the wilderness for a good decade or more if they really want to. And frankly, I think they should do it anyway, and not for partisan reasons. Okay. They should do it so the American people realize, mother of God, I don't ever want to let these people be in charge again, because I don't want my country to get screwed up like it has been the past 4 years.
Well, and the
You know.
problem there, I think, is you said it, not because of a partisan issue.
Uh-huh.
All partisan politics aside, if they're going to go in and they're going to take a chainsaw to the government, I want to know the corruption from the Republicans. I want to know the corruption
Yep.
from the Democrats. And
Yep.
I want a solid path forward so that this kind of shit doesn't fucking happen again.
Amen.
That's what I want. And the problem with Washington is a lot of, let's be real, a lot of Trump loyalists are not going to throw their friends under the bus if they did shady shit.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to. For the good
Yeah.
of the country, you have to. That's why I've said we need to just say, you know what? Term limits are happening. If you have served more than 2 consecutive terms, at the end of this 4 years, you're fucking gone.
Yeah.
You're gone. We're replacing you. You will have an almost entirely new Congress like that.
Oh, I agree.
Root the corruption out. Get rid of them. I mean, Nancy Pelosi just fell and broke her hip, which, God, hopefully she's able to come back from that and enjoy the rest of her life, because broken hips are nothing to play with at that age. But you've got Mitch McConnell that's glitching out and is now being carted around in a wheelchair after he's fallen twice. And the only reason they're still there is because of special interests and corruption.
Yeah, it's high time that we take a page from the founding fathers and start putting laws and systems into place that prevent from happening again what's really been happening over the past 30 or 40 years, where the system has been rigged to the benefit of a handful of people in Congress, that because they're in Congress, they know how to rig the system to their benefit. Why is it that Nancy Pelosi's net worth almost always seems to go up every time a vote gets taken on something? I mean, why is there a stock trade that seems to go to her benefit to the point that she's now worth like hundreds of millions of dollars between her and her husband, Paul? Why is it there are people who come into Congress? I mean, they're financially secure. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're paupers, but why is it they come out the other side even more wealthy than even before they went in? I thought this was supposed to be public service. You know, I'm like you. I don't know which one I want more. I'm not sure if I want term limits or an age limit. In other words, I don't necessarily care the number of terms you serve, but after you get past a certain age, okay, you might be in the middle of
term limits are the way to go.
It might be. I could go for either one depending on how it's structured, you know. But to me, it's like you hit a certain age, you're done. Which, by the way, sets up
real quick. Scott, thank you for the Rumble rant. Appreciate you. He said 100% agree. P.S. The Canadian hot dog sent me here, so we know who that is. Well, you tell that maple leaf loving wiener that I said thank you.
Maple leaf loving wiener. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, look, the first time I was on his show, he said, "I'm going to show you my wiener," and it was his.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, and anyway, back to what you were saying. Term limits.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be, I would argue against them. After what I've seen over the past 8 or 9 or 10 years, I'm like, yep, it's time for some of these people to go. It really is. Because I mean, here's my thought: no more than 3 terms in the Senate, maybe no more than 5 terms in the House. That's it. You're done. You're out. I mean, you want to stop this stuff?
I didn't know that. They say she was intoxicated. Perhaps if she was sober, she would not have tumbled down the stairs. Nancy Pelosi, drunk?
Shocking.
Put down the bourbon, Nancy.
Shocking, honey. Yeah. You can't quite boogaloo anymore like you once did. So yeah, put it down, honey, or wait to get to the bottom of the stairs before you take the next sip. I don't know.
It's so funny though, because that's a rampant problem in Congress. Apparently, when I had George Santos on, we had talked about it, and he mentioned that there was a couple times that a certain member of Congress, he did not name names, was so drunk that they would literally hand somebody else their thing,
Their
to
voting
vote for
card.
them, their voting card.
Oh my god!
Like they were just so smashed that they couldn't do it. That's it. It's insanity. These
Well,
people are supposed to be leading our country, and they're showing up to the halls of Congress, sacred ground, drunk off their fucking ass. Fuck you. Go away. You're done.
Well, I kept talking about this throughout 2024, but now that I start to think about it, this is the last election where the baby boomers are going to be prominent at the top of the ticket. This is it.
Yep.
We are headed, and it's going to come faster than people think. We are headed for a generational change in American politics. It's going to be accelerated in the coming 4 years. And when we get to 2028, you're talking about people in their 40s and 50s running for president.
Well, we're already seeing that. Look at our vice president.
Yeah. JD's what, 40, 41 years old, something like that? Yeah.
Yep. And then you got Vivek that's getting into government. He's only in his 30s.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I mean, it's going to be a generational change. And that's where I think what you were saying earlier about putting the Democrats out to pasture for at least the next decade. Ultimately, that's what's going to happen, because look at the youth on that side. That's never going to happen. Those are the most dangerous ones. The guys like Hakeem Jeffries, which we need to just lock him in a cage and just throw away the key.
No, I say let dime store Obama keep on talking. Just let him do it.
He's fucking nuts, man.
Well, no. See, I'm a little bit different. Okay, I want the crazy on full display from the Democrats. With one difference. See, this time, I want people on the right, when the Democrats get crazy rhetorically, I want them engaged. I want them argued against. I want their points invalidated right in front of them and God in the world. Conservatives made a horrible mistake. And let me take everybody back in time a little bit, because I'm going to pull the old man card here. I remember when the Republicans took control of Congress for the first time in 40 years back in 1994. And as it was now, as it was then, Democrats went nuts because they were out of power. And conservatives, like myself and others, made a mistake. We laughed at them. And that's all we did. And everybody in this audience is smart enough to know the old adage, what does it take for a lie to become the truth? Simple. Keep on repeating it long enough and never tell anybody the truth. The liberals knew exactly what they were doing, in that they kept on, planting these seeds of crazy ideas, and they were never challenged. They were never confronted. Conservatives and people on the right just laughed at them because, no one's going to believe this nonsense about DEI. No one's going to believe this nonsense about, radical feminism. No one's going to believe all these, crazy ideas. And what happened, 10, 20 years later, all that stuff started to spring up. This time, if political lefties are going to go out in the wilderness, okay, y'all can scream out there in the wilderness all you want to, but I want you confronted at every turn, and I want it demonstrated why your ideas are crap. And let the American people figure out on their own, we never should have listened to these people in the first place, and just keep y'all out in the wilderness, and y'all can talk amongst yourselves while we actually go about fixing the country and make it better for everybody. So that's
what's interesting is coinciding with that. Go back to 1979 under the Carter administration. Department of Education was founded. So you fast forward 14 years. Now you have a whole new generation of people. So this concept of, this will never take off, nobody's ever going to believe this bullshit, blah blah blah. All of a sudden, while we weren't paying attention, the Democrats were tackling academia, and we're starting it from an elementary school level on, to where these things started getting pumped into a federalized education system. So, run that hand in hand. And that's how you've wound up with a youth that is so fucking lost and have no idea how the world works. it's, you know, how do you come back from it? Well, we've seen the answer. You fight. You literally fight. Donald
Yep.
Trump has done a fantastic job. Look at the vote. Look at the numbers. Young men came out in droves for
Yep.
Donald Trump. Why? Because the majority of young men decided not to push back for the longest time because, well, let's be real, the power of the pussy, right?
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
want to get laid. A lot of the women are still falling for it, whatever, the power of the pussy, right? And
Mhm.
so you've gotten to this point now where shit has gotten so fucked up and they see a guy who has arguably had quite a bit of pussy in his life. Let's be real, it's Donald Trump. Is up and he's exposing it. He's saying things out loud, saying what everyone else is thinking. And you get a guy like JD Vance, who in my opinion is the definition of an alpha male, right? In
Yep.
terms of the way he carries himself.
Mhm.
You have these guys that are relatable, that are just normal guys that want the lunacy to end. And I firmly believe don't want the pendulum to swing too far in the other direction. See Donald Trump's stance on abortion and abortion pills, things like that. But now that more conservative side of Gen Z, and even, you know, I mean, millennials are kind of a lost cause. But that Gen Z conservative base is starting to pop up.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah.
only way we've done it, is we've somehow managed to shatter the glass ceiling, or I guess you could say we've pulled the curtain back just enough so everybody can get a peek at the Truman Show and
Mhm.
realize, holy shit, I've been lied to.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the now that we're fighting back, and Republicans have gotten very good at the social media thing. Let's be real. You know, they've kind of moved into the next generation of marketing, right? Look at the election cycle with all the podcast appearances and things like that. They're going after the future because millennials are the lost cause. It's not letting it fall under the wayside or fall by the wayside and fighting it at every step. That's the only way you beat it.
Well, a couple of three thoughts. I agree with you about fighting it every step of the way, but you've got to get into the institutions, or maybe better to say, you've got to get into the foundations of the house. Okay,
Right.
you've got to shore them up. You've got to reinforce them. You have got to preserve them. You have got to strengthen them, and more particularly in this case, enhance them. It's not enough for us to say we're going to cut government. We have to explain to the American people why we're cutting government. We have to remind the American people of what a limited government means, and that is self-reliance. We've got to educate children to understand the history of how this country came to be. And I don't mean the 1619 version that the New York Times would have them learn. How about we teach them everything from about 1750 on up, when we realize, hey, our rights are being trampled on. We have certain unalienable rights. We'd like to preserve them. Thank you very much, Great Britain. And we fought a war to try to do that, and we won. And, you know, we've got to get hold of the institutions. Now, there is one cautionary tale that I think people on the right need to remember and be very careful about. This is Donald Trump's last election. Translation: he's not going to be on the ballot. And Robert, you're astute observer of politics. You know what happens in an election when Donald Trump's not on the ballot. There is a certain segment of the population that just does not come out to vote. I'll make an argument that conservatives and or populists have won. The Republican Party has not. The Republican Party needs Donald Trump way more than Trump needs the Republican Party. And the next 4 years is going to be one of two things happen. If the populist right continues to get a not just toehold, but actually operational control of the Republican Party, then going forward, even without Donald Trump on the ballot, they could stand a chance of maintaining power and hopefully keep pushing forward the things that a lot of us or all of us want to see done. If, on the other hand, the establishment is able to wait Donald Trump out and stymie or blunt a lot of the things he wants to do, yes, they'll win in the short term. They'll lose in the long run because without Donald Trump on the ballot or a Trump-like figure, let's put it like that, without a Donald Trump on the ballot or a Trump-like figure, there is an absolute segment of the population. They will not come out to vote. They won't do it. Midterm elections, presidential, it doesn't matter. They're gone. And my worry is, I mean, if Donald Trump wants to have a successful presidency, he's going to have to almost reproduce, not exactly the same number, but a high turnout in 2026, almost akin to what you'd have in a presidential election, because he has to maintain control of the House. If he has a repeat of what happens in 2018, where the Democrats get the House, then the last 2 years of his presidency are just shot. And we're right back to where we started.
Well, and that's why I think, guys like Matt Gaetz get a lot of flack, right? But, at one point I remember one of the propagandists on mainstream media had said something about guys like Matt Gaetz that are, they're just social media influencers that want to be politicians.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, is that supposed to be an insult? How do you think you're going to get to people? Matt Gaetz is one of those guys, and Josh Hawley's another one. It's their persona that attracts people to them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why people actually like John Kennedy, even though he's useless in a lot of ways. He's got that personality.
Good old boy charm. Yep.
So to your point, yeah, we're going to need somebody that's a Trump-like figure. And I think we have two of them ready to go. And those would be J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would not like to see Vivek run in 28. I think he's still going to be too wet behind the ears. But I think what I would like to see is a Vance Gabbard ticket in the future.
Yeah.
It would be a powerhouse. You would bring people in
that ticket would
from
be
both
almost
sides of the aisle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I've still got my eye on Kennedy too. I would like to see Kennedy, after this cycle, break back into the Democratic Party and start pushing some of his ideals back into it, because I want to get back to a point where it's almost so boring that you can't differentiate between the two except for minor details. That's what I want. I want a boring freaking political system again.
But here's the problem, and I have a buddy of mine, and I've known him for 20 years. Goes, my nickname for him is Smiling Jack. I need to catch up with him because I haven't talked to him probably about a week or so. But Smiling Jack and I have had this discussion now for years. I think the Democrat Party, as currently constituted, is too far gone. I don't think there's anybody that pulls them back to rationality. Now, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. In 1988, a Massachusetts liberal named Michael Dukakis got his head handed to him by Poppy Bush. Well, the Democrats went out in the wilderness, and out of that came the Democrat Leadership Council, which started pushing moderate to centrist policy ideas for the Democrat Party. Out of that came a very open primary and a Southern moderate governor named Bill Clinton, who picked another Southern moderate in Al Gore. And, through confluence of events and some, frankly, just sheer political luck, they beat Poppy Bush and the Republican establishment. You could make an argument that Bill Clinton's victory in 92 was presaged by the DLC pulling the Democrats back to the center. Because think about all their candidates up to that point. McGovern in 72. All right, Carter is the exception in 76. Okay. Mondale in 84. Dukakis in 88. They had run far left candidates for the better part of 2 decades. Okay. But then they finally realized, okay, what we're trying to sell ain't nobody buying. So we need to take a different tack here. Now that was 30 years ago. fast forward to 2024, I don't know that if Robert Kennedy Jr. went back to the Democrat Party, that anybody would listen to him. I'm not even sure if JFK came back from the dead, they'd listen to him at this point. I mean, you got old timers like James Carville and, David Axelrod and a whole bunch of others trying to tell the Democrat Party, guys, you need to listen to us. We've won these things before. We know how this stuff works. That the Democrat Party is currently constantly right now is so far left. I don't know that anybody pulls them back to the center to the point they're actually competitive in a national election again. I really don't. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're going to lose every presidential election, because the Republican Party is notoriously good at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Okay.
Yeah.
But laying that aside, I don't know that the Democrats actually become competitive again. Because there's nobody left. Joe Manchin's left the party. Kristen Sinema's retiring. Moderate Democrats, however you want to define moderate, okay, have left, are now retiring, or they're getting out. And what have you got left? You've got, Rashida Tlaib. You've got AOC. You've got
Terrorists.
Yeah, you've got a bunch of left-wing loonies, and there's and the people who understand how to moderate this stuff, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, Nancy, for all of her faults, they're getting older. They're going to retire at some point. What you've got left now are a bunch of lefties, and it's going to be the same thing in the Senate, by the way, because when Schumer and a handful of others leave, like Schumer, Durbin, bunch
Jerry
of others, you're going to have a bunch of far lefties in the Senate. So I don't know that there's anybody that pulls the Democrats back to make them competitive again nationally.
I don't even know that with time, depending on how these next 4 years go, I don't know that they'll be competitive anywhere.
Now, at the rate they're going, they won't be.
No, I think you'll see their guaranteed wins. California, although I think California has the potential to flip red probably in 12 years. I would say.
About 10 years, I'd say.
10, 12 years. New Mexico has been a pretty blue stronghold for a while. Colorado, I'll be very interested to see what happens over the next 4 years because of this migrant crisis. New York.
Keep your eye on Illinois. Keep your eye on Illinois. Chicago. There were certain precincts in Chicago that went more to the right than they'd gone in years. Illinois is right there. It's right there. I'm not saying Chicago is about to become a bastion of conservative republicanism anytime soon, but I'm telling you right now, that state in about maybe 2 more election cycles is going to get real competitive again. And that to me thrills my if you have the right kind of candidate running at the top of the ticket. If you've got a Trump-like figure, you can appeal to African Americans in Chicago. You can appeal to Hispanics in Chicago. Same thing with New Jersey. Other places. I think it's coming.
I'm very interested to see what happens with New York, specifically New York City.
Agreed.
Because you're starting to see the red pilling of Mayor Eric Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And if he starts leaning more towards these moderate positions because he doesn't need the Democrats to keep his job anymore, and things start to turn around, well, what happens when the largest and at one point most populous city in the country says, fuck you?
Well, I mean, and I don't think it's just necessarily confined to Eric Adams either. It's like, how many businesses do you want to see leave New York City and New York State? How much crime do you want to put up with? How many people how much of your population do you want to lose? How much of all these things, how much of high taxes and low services, how much of all that do you want to put together before you finally say, as a resident of New York, you know what? I may have never voted for the other party in my entire life, but I've got to do something, even if I'm throwing away my vote in this election. But the funny thing you start discovering is you talk to your neighbor down the street. Oh man, I voted for such and such in the last election. I know it's throwing away my vote. you voted for him too? And then all of a sudden they begin to realize, hey, we're not out here in the wilderness all by ourselves. Everybody thinks this.
Right.
Everybody's believing this. And I mean, much like California, it might take a couple or three more election cycles, but it wouldn't. I mean, I think the battleground map, as currently defined, these 6 or 7 states, it's going to expand. In the next 10 years, it has the potential to expand to places nobody had ever thought they'd ever see it be competitive again. I really do.
George said that's what happened to PA back in the late 70s, early 80s when they did everything to chase off steel mills and manufacturing.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the 2030 census that's coming up, I mean, I've seen some early projections. I mean, again, California's going to lose congressional seats. New York's going to lose congressional seats. Illinois is going to lose congressional seats. Where are they all going? Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia.
Republican
They're all going to the
strongholds.
South. Yeah. Those seats are going to the South.
I think we're seeing this migrant influx because where are they all going? Blue cities.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And where's Tom Homan going to start cleaning them out? Blue cities.
Blue cities. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we absolutely need it. I mean, I think we're on the verge of some major change. I think, and I hope, God, I hope, but I think we're on the verge of major changes in our the way our politics work. I mean, not just that, but you're seeing left-leaning governments all over the world are having their own people revolt against them. Yeah. You're seeing it all over Europe. You see it in Argentina, specifically. They were a socialist state for, my God, the better part of 40 years.
You can make an argument 100.
Yeah. I mean, since the Peronists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, since the start of that. And that was the 1910s. Prior to that, I think it was something like that.
And then Javier Milei comes in 3 years and absolutely turns Argentina around. Yeah, it's extraordinary what he's done down there.
I want people's eyes on that country. I want their eyes on that country because that's the future. That's where we could be headed with the right governance.
El Salvador is the same way. El Salvador used to be a hot mess back in the 80s. And now you've got a country that, is thriving, is prosperous, it's peaceful, it's safe. People are flocking to it. You're going to have the same thing happening in Argentina. And, again, I think you're absolutely right about this, Robert. With the right leadership, I'm not saying we're on the edge of a, renaissance per se, or this golden age that, keeps being talked about. But I think that to me was one of the things that made the 2024 election so intriguing, because I am all about ideological contrast. I have always said, if you have an honest election, and by honest, I mean intellectually honest, if you have an honest election where you have someone who is representative of conservative or right-leaning principle against somebody who's, liberal or of leftist-leaning principle, you give the American people a fair choice with full disclosure. This is what I believe. This is what I'm going to do. The American people, more often than not, will choose the right-leaning candidate as opposed to the lefty. Yep. Okay. In the case of the 2024 election, until Joe Biden dropped out, you have 4 years of Donald Trump against 4 years of Joe Biden. And the American people were already making up their mind. If Joe Biden doesn't drop out, if what we've all heard is true, if Joe Biden didn't drop out of that race, Donald Trump was going to beat him like a rented government mule.
Yep.
That's how bad the results.
And they called an audible. That's what they did. And that audible backfired.
Oh, well, in large part, I hate to say this, in large part, thanks to the contrariness and the spitefulness of Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
If he'd have just dropped out and not endorsed Kamala Harris, then the Democrats would have gotten what they wanted, a truncated open primary, or at a minimum, and at worst, an open convention, but they would have had a nominee of the party's choosing. But in 30 minutes after he drops out, the moment he endorsed Kamala, he forced the Democrats to have to back her or risk open dissension where everybody could see it. Joe knew exactly what he was doing when he endorsed her. He said, "Okay, you want to run me out of this thing? Fine. Yeah, here you go. Here you get everything that goes with it. You get
Well,
her."
and then the signals, the entire time, like Jill Biden on election day leaving in an all red suit.
Joe walking
Biden
around
putting on
wearing
the Trump hat.
or walking up the staircase to Air Force One, had the Trump hat in his hand, all that good stuff. The 2-hour meeting at the White House after the election between he and Trump. However, I will say this.
Or my favorite moment of the debate, he hates her. He can't stand her.
Oh yeah.
Like, I love it.
But I will say this. As much as I celebrated those moments when Joe Biden was putting the screws to his own political party, I got to be honest, he's doing Trump no favors coming in. I mean, I have never seen somebody so desperate to make sure that his incoming successor of the opposite party is just going to be handcuffed as much as he can make it. Now, it may very well be the handcuffs don't mean anything to Trump because he gets in and just starts. But I mean, we're on the edge of getting into a world war because of Russia and Ukraine. You've got economic policy that's tying the hands of the incoming president, particularly on questions of spending. I mean, Joe Biden's doing Trump no favors coming in. Absolutely not. It's terrible to watch.
It is, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, we're going to see Trump overcome a lot of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because he's just got that kind of mentality. It's like, we're going to work our way around this and we'll figure it out. We'll make the thing happen.
Well, everybody seems to be pussyfooting around it now because he's the incoming president. But the second the ring's on the man's finger and he's in charge, everybody's going to straighten up real quick.
Oh yeah,
real quick.
Yeah. The only question that I have, and to me it will be fascinating to watch, is how much trouble the Senate Republicans give him over the next 3 to 4 years.
I don't think they will.
I don't necessarily agree with that yet. And I'll tell you why. They're going to try to do what the Democrats did for 4 years. They're going to wait him out, slow him down and wait him out, because their theory is, and this is where I don't think Senate Republicans, or maybe it's better to say establishment Republicans, understand what's happened here. The Republican Party that you were a part of is done. And I'm not saying that with maliciousness. I'm just saying the reality. You're done. The Bill Kristols, the Jonah Goldbergs, that era of, Republican politics, you're done. What's coming in now is younger, more conservative, more populist.
Anti-war.
It's anti-war, pro-worker. When you got Republicans, when you got Donald Trump sitting down with the labor leader of the international longshoremen down at Mar-a-Lago, and they're having like a 2-hour conversation, and the guy walks out of the meeting saying, this is the first Republican candidate I ever met for president that actually not only wanted to listen to us, but wants to do something about it. You've got a remarkable potential era here ahead. And if the Senate Republicans aren't careful, they're going to cost themselves everything. But then again,
I think that's what we're going to see. I think we'll see for the first 2 years, everybody's going to be on their best behavior, so that, we've made it very abundantly clear that if you fuck with Trump's plan, and we're going to primary the shit out of you. I mean, we've made that abundantly clear. And you have people like Scott Pressler that are straight calling people out on X. When Scott Pressler says, I'm going to primary you.
Yeah. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
That was that way with what's her name? Joni
Ernst out in Iowa. Yeah.
Yes. He made the comment, I will put every fiber of my being into primarying her. Well, now all of a sudden she doesn't have a problem with Pete. They're learning.
Well, I'm going to say something at the risk of being, perceived as ruthless. Forget threatening to do it. Let's just do it. Now I'll tell you why. You let these people hang around, they cannot be trusted. Lindsey Graham is the biggest snake in the grass. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what he says. He needs to go. McConnell needs to go. Tom Tillis needs to go. Murkowski out of Alaska needs to go. Collins out of Maine needs to. I could list about 7 or 8 or 9 of them. They just need to go. Forget
They need
threatening to
to just be gone.
primary him. Primary him. If you lose, okay. I mean, I operate under a very simple political principle, among others. I would rather have an honest enemy as I would a dishonest ally. I would
Yeah.
rather have a Democrat in some of these Senate seats as I would the Republicans I got to deal with right now. I'm done with it.
I mean, the devil you know is ultimately what it comes down to.
And I don't mind disagreements. Okay. I don't like dishonesty. I don't like two-facedness. Okay.
Agreed.
That's the part that gets me about, McConnell and Graham and all these cats. Okay. If you were legitimately disagreeing with me, okay, that's one thing. When you're publicly praising J.D. Vance as the best vice presidential nominee ever, and privately we find out you're running down to Mar-a-Lago trying to talk Trump out of picking J.D. Vance, there I got a problem. It's that kind of stuff. It's that kind of stuff that pisses me off, and makes me go nuts. So,
Yeah,
we
we're
have
gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Let's go.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're at that point where you kind of have to question everything that comes out of Trump's cabinet as well. Because I was very quick to criticize Pam Bondi for meeting with people like John Thune and Lindsey Graham and meeting with a lot of these old school Republican neocon war hawks. Those guys, and especially guys like John Thune, this is your incoming AG. I was quick to say, what the fuck? I don't want her meeting with these people. They're snakes. It's terrible. Then the thought hit me. I mean, Trump plays 4D chess, right? Is he having her meet with these people so that she can try to say, hey, we know that you've done such and such. You've committed financial crimes here. You've done this. You've done this. You've done this. Here's what we can try you for. Can we count on your support?
Yeah.
And then if not, boom, day one, investigations. I mean, and as much as I don't like the weaponization of the justice system, I think it's time to start cutting out the cancer.
No, I don't disagree with you. Primary them, if they need to be investigated, investigate them. I mean, I don't even need it for political purposes. Just do it.
Can you say that there's anyone in Congress that probably shouldn't be investigated at this point?
Probably not. I mean, it's kind of like, it reminds me of that old story from the Bible when so there's Abraham living somewhere out in Canaan, and the Lord sends along someone says, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. God, if there's 100 righteous, will you spare the city? God's like, okay, fine. God sends his 2 angels into Sodom and Gomorrah because I couldn't find 100 righteous. Well, God, if you can find 10 righteous, would you spare the city? Check that. I can't find 10. If you can find 1, this is how I feel about Congress. 535 members of the Congress. I'm not sure there's enough of them there that justify not investigating. There's more that could be investigated than there's not. It's ridiculous.
No, 100%.
That's why I'm saying we need laws, and not just laws. I'm starting to say some constitutional. I mean, the power of pardon. Okay, we need to seriously rethink this whole idea of. I mean, yes, the power of pardon is absolute. I get it. But some of what's being, a preemptive pardon, if it gets done, right now it's just being talked about. But to preemptively give a pardon when no one's been convicted of a crime?
Or with the case of Hunter Biden, pardoning back over a decade and then pardoning into the future.
Yeah. Yeah. He
What
can't be touched.
no, and I personally, I think, we have presidential immunity, but we should not, under any circumstances, be allowing a president to pardon family, friends, or members of their cabinet.
Yep.
Because ultimately, if a member of the cabinet is doing something shady or illegal, you cannot tell me that the president didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
I mean,
we have to establish some kind of limits.
well, and that's just it. It's reached the point. It's so egregious, so over the top, and so
Agreed.
in your face. In your face. You got to do something about it. It's
And
absurd
we're
now.
seeing that.
I
We're
agree.
seeing that. I also think we need to rethink the way the Supreme Court works in terms of presidential appointments. And I mean, some people have voted, have said, oh, well, maybe we should elect them. Electing them is a terrible idea.
No.
Presidential appointing is also a terrible idea. I think at the end of the day, instead of the president appointing them, I think it should be congressional.
Why?
Ultimately, at the end of the day, when you look at Congress, specifically on the Republican side, there are a lot of members of Congress that do not agree, but they get along.
Okay.
When you put something like the Supreme Court in front of them, and it's a decision that you may have to deal with for the next 30, 40, maybe even 50 years, unless they decide to retire.
Mm-hmm.
That's a much more weighted decision than it is one person saying, I think this guy's going to be good. Let's try to get it in.
Well, but remember, the only thing the president does is the nomination. In the end, it's the Senate that does confirm them. So you can make an argument you've got exactly what you want right now. I mean, yeah, the president nominates, and yeah, I mean, there's been a handful of them over the years that have been rejected. But, I mean, I have no problem with the Supreme Court as an institution per se. I don't like what the Democrats are trying to do. They're trying to muddy the perception of the court in the eyes of the public so they can start ramming through a bunch of reforms. Oh, the Supreme Court is so overworked. We need to add more justices. Really? Last time I heard the statistics, the Supreme Court only takes 1% of all cases in the federal court system. Yeah, that's really a lot of overwork. Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that 1%, I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. Because the Supreme Court is supposed to be the last call. If you can't get it solved at the local or, the state levels, or the smaller federal courts, it doesn't go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Supreme Court has the right of refusal. I mean, only if the case deals with a question of constitutionality or some other issue will they willingly take it up. And you've got to get a majority of them being willing to do it. So,
I just, the reason I think ultimately at the end of the day, again, presidential appointment is at the end of the day, you have a better chance with Congress of it being a more balanced nomination and a more balanced appointment. I mean, I think if the House nominates and the Senate confirms, same thing. All the president has to do is sign off.
Interesting.
I mean, and ultimately it would give more power back to the people. Because the people, whether it's through polling or whatever it is, you'll know where the people stand, and it's up to Congress to act on behalf of their constituents.
Do you think that Trump, just out of curiosity, do you think Trump gets to put any more justices on or let me rephrase that. Do you think that Trump's going to get the chance to nominate anybody else for the Supreme Court in his second term?
I don't know. I think that, obviously when it comes down to Doge and Pam Bondi, I mean, when they start getting into this nitty gritty, and they start auditing different parts, we may very well see some justices out on their ass. Clarence Thomas, I don't get me wrong, I like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like the guy. I like his politics. I like where he stands. I like how he rules. But he's accepting gifts. He's this, he's that. Gotta go. Gotta go.
Okay.
So, those, and Scott just said, I think Thomas will retire. So I would like to think that, Trump would get another nomination. But what we really need is one of the more liberal, like Sotomayor or whoever. We need one of them out. Because replacing a conservative justice with another conservative justice rather, it's a net neutral. You've got to try to balance it out. Get rid of the Sotomayor, and who's the other one?
There's Sotomayor, Kagan, and Ketanji Jackson Brown.
That one.
Thomas is 76. So if it's going to be anybody that retires, it's probably going to be him. He would be 77 years old at the end of the Supreme Court's term that they're currently in right now. If he's going to do it, now's the time. You got a Republican majority in the Senate. You have a Republican president. If you're going to step away,
now's the time.
I just hope we get whoever comes in. Do I expect them to be exactly the same? Nah, I don't expect them to be exactly the same. But I'm just hoping that they are of similar judicial mindset to Thomas. That's my hope.
Well, and that's it. Thomas is very much a down the middle guy. He's not a hard line one way or the other. I mean, he looks at the Constitution like he's supposed to.
Yeah.
Unlike some of these radicals that we have appointed.
Well, it's not even that they're radical. They're just stupid. I'm sorry. With all due respect to Ketanji Jackson Brown, she's stupid.
Yeah.
She is absolutely stupid.
She wears the strings of the marionette really well.
I'll make a statement. Of the three liberals, the one that I think I respect the most is Kagan. Ketanji Jackson Brown, to me, and again, I even hate to say this about someone, but she is just not that smart. Sotomayor is behind her as far as, lacking of what I consider to be basic constitutional intelligence. But Kagan is reasonable. I shouldn't say reasonably. She is an intelligent liberal. Yes, there are moments that she irritates Alito. Do what? An intelligent liberal? Yeah, you can be an intelligent liberal. It's possible.
I thought it was all just indoctrinated.
No, not necessarily. You can be an intelligent. There are some lefties I would love to have a conversation with. Cenk Uygur, I would love to have a conversation with. Okay.
Smart guy.
A very smart guy. Would I agree with him on much? I don't know. Probably not. He probably wouldn't agree with me on much, but I think it'd be a fascinating conversation. Which, by the way, for folks watching this live stream right now, Cenk is having a very interesting thing happen to him. He finds out when he talks to conservatives, he actually winds up agreeing with them more than he does some of his own liberal brethren, which is rather amusing in one sense to watch. It really is. It's like, wow, Cenk, you found out we're not all a bunch of evil SOBs. Good on you, boy. But
not just that, but he's also finding out that one step out of line and you're a martyr.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anna Kasparian's going through the same thing right now.
Which isn't that funny? The Young Turks of all people.
Well, but to me, and again, I don't necessarily follow the Young Turks content all that seriously, but I will say this. To me, going after the left, going after Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian and others of the Young Turks, to me is just one more good example of how far left that whole side of the ideological spectrum, how far left it's gotten and how insane it's become. Okay. When the left is going after two of their more prominent proponents, okay, in terms of Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, that's not a good sign.
I said that leftism it's an Ouroboros. It's the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
it eventually eats its own.
Or the other
And we're
way I've
seeing
heard,
that.
or the other way I've heard described is by Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, who has said it's a hive mind. Every bee in the colony buzzes at the exact same pitch. And if you buzz at something other than what is considered to be pitch perfect, it's not an issue they're trying to help you buzz correctly. They're going to destroy that drone in the hive so that the pitch of the buzz is back to what is perceived to be its perfect level.
Yep.
And it's really sad to watch. It really is.
Well, it's sad to watch, but it's sad to realize that there are so many people that have just fallen in lockstep and haven't bothered to question any of it.
Yeah. And they don't want to. And they don't want their ideas questioned. And when you try to do it, it's just propaganda. No, this is information. I'm showing you something you've never seen. That doesn't make it propaganda.
Right. Exactly.
It just really kind of blows my mind some days. The level of, Sergeant Schultzing that people on the left do. I know nothing. I hear nothing. I see nothing. And you can't tell them.
No.
You absolutely cannot tell them. I have one of the greatest laments that I have heard, and this is not just true of the social media community, but on the right in general, regardless of what format they are trying to engage in. They can't get liberals to come on their shows. Or not even liberals, let's just say people of the left. They won't engage.
No.
Conservatives have no problem going on shows that are hosted by leftists, but you can't get a leftist to come on a right-leaning person's show. And that's what frustrated me.
They always want to do it on their channels, on their networks.
But a perfect example. During the 2024 election, Joe Rogan invites Kamala Harris to come on his live stream and says to her staff, look, I don't care if we do it at 8 in the morning. I don't care if we do it at 8 at night. I don't care if we do it at midnight. We'll give her some Red Bulls and let's just go. But I want to have her on the show and I want to have a conversation. Her campaign staff comes back with, well, we'll fly you to this location and you have to do it for 1 hour and we want to know what you're going to edit. And Rogan's like, first of all, I'm not leaving Austin. Second of all, we're going to do this here. And third, I don't edit anything. And he even said, look, I wasn't trying to score points off the woman. I just want to have a conversation. I want to find out why you think the way you think. I want to find out why you are the way you are. Mm-hmm. She wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Or maybe it's better to say her staff wouldn't let her do it, which frankly, you kind of understand why. But I mean, yeah, it's just not
the
exactly.
Brett Baer interview is a prime example of why.
Well, but I mean, laying that aside, I mean, I'm not using the perfect example here, but you get my point. The left does not want to engage in such a way that they have to defend their position, that someone gets to question them. Brett Baer took her apart in roughly 26 minutes.
Yeah.
Just by himself, just asking basic questions, just pushing back even just a very little bit. And I don't consider Brett Baer to be, he's a good interviewer. He's a good host, for Fox News. But I don't consider, Brett Baer to be some fire breather by any stretch of the imagination. No. But he just very politely pushed back and she collapsed under it. When her staff is over there on the sidelines going, we're done. Just trying to get her out of it because they knew how badly it was going.
Oh, yeah. They knew it was terrible.
Yeah, it was awful.
Absolutely she came off like a total bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants that.
Nope.
And then you had her weird, some of her weird moments, like with talking about the Starbucks cup, and it didn't help that you had, creepy pedo coach Tim Walz as a running mate, and his wife talking to people like she was instructing a kindergarten freaking assembly. Like, come on now, guys. People realize, like, what the fuck? These people really think we're that fucking stupid? Are you shitting me? You know, look at how many people left the left this year.
Yeah. And will continue to do so. And they will continue to do so because I don't think the establishment of the Democrat Party is willing to look at themselves in the mirror and understand why they lost. I really don't. You know, there's some
and
out there
they
saying,
refuse to.
and there's well, we didn't go far enough to the left. I'm like, well, you want to keep on thinking that way? Go ahead and keep on losing, because that's what's going to happen to you. You will keep on losing elections like you've never seen. You know,
nobody's falling for it anymore. You know, it's just the pendulum is swung too far.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Again, you know, you're getting the more and more radicals trying to find their way into politics, and it's just not going well.
Yeah,
and it's not going to go well because I think people have really. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think we needed this 4 years of craziness with Biden for people to wake up and realize, holy shit, we're really fucked up.
Well, and this, but it can't just be, you know, you wake up from the hangover, look over and go, how did I get in bed with you? It's got to be, okay, we're changing the locks on the door. We're going to go to meetings. We're not going to do whatever this was that got us into this situation. We ain't doing this no more. If we don't do some serious fundamental reforms of how we do governance in America at the federal level, then this election will have been wasted.
Oh yeah,
just absolutely wasted.
Yeah, 100%. That's why people. There's going to be the pearl clutchers on the right that are going to be like, no, you can't do it that way. That's not the right way to do. No, we need somebody to come in with a sledgehammer and tell you, fuck your right way. We're getting the shit done. And I think we're going to need that, you know, and if it takes fucking constitutional amendments, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah. Force the issue out to the states and let the states vote it up or down. And then the people can decide from there whether they want those people in the state legislature anymore. You know? Yep. I agree.
And you just got to make sure people are smart enough to actually pay attention to it. That's the problem. Democrats banked for so long on the right not having a fucking clue.
Well, and the thing is, say what you want to about, say what you want to about Donald Trump, but he is perfect when he gets grooved in on a message. He's grooved in, and he will drive it home better than anybody I've ever seen. Seriously.
Without a doubt. I mean, and not just that, but you know, guys like Elon Musk that I think truly altered the course of history by buying X. You know, one of the things the left did was they took over all of the media. They took over, you know, I mean, obviously you've always had Hollywood, but you know, the major news companies, and you had big tech come in and start censoring on platforms like Facebook and YouTube. And now you have this, you know, guys like Elon Musk and Chris Pavlovsky. You have these great guys that have given the right a way to get their message out and mobilize their base because they were handicapped for so long. So, you know, it's that is what really changed the game, I think. And now that we're starting to see, you know, guys like Jeff Bezos with the Washington Post, he wants to hire more conservative writers. You know, those kinds of things have to happen. And we're seeing that. Now the only thing left is to take back academia.
Yeah.
From the bottom, big tech.
From the bottom up. That's how we got to do it, because the hand that rocks the cradle shall rule the world. You've got to get it all young. You've got to start in elementary, junior high, high school, and then it kind of starts taking care of itself.
Well, but the other thing I think people have to realize is, you know, as we enter this, I talk about the age of decentralization, right?
Sure.
But really what it is it's the age of information. As you open the door to this new era where information is available at light speed and it's balanced and you don't have one side running everything. As we move into that era, you're not going to be able to teach from the young age on the way you used to with propaganda.
Yep.
You're going to have to teach honestly about what actually works. And if that's the case, Democrats will never win another election
Absolutely.
because it doesn't
Absolutely.
work. So before we get out of here, where can everybody follow you?
Folks can find me on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. You can find my channels on Rumble and YouTube at the Front Porch Conservative, although that's probably going to get rebranded after January 1st. I make videos, live streams. I do live interviews. I'm going to be doing a live stream tomorrow night on my channel at 7:30 Eastern called Chatting on the Porch. And this Thursday night, I have a guest coming on, Courtney Brooke, who's an up-and-coming young YouTuber out of the West Coast. Her content is not necessarily political, but it's lighter, it's more fun. And I'm going to be talking to her, trying to, doing much like we're doing right now, having conversation, trying to figure out who she is, what got her into this. And, if I can help her in any way, I'm glad to do it. But yeah, that's where you can find me and Robert. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. And brother, you're welcome back on my channel anytime you want to come on. Would be glad to have you. Yeah, all right, brother.
Now, you don't just do political content on your channel, do you?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I take Rush Limbaugh's old tack. I talk about what interests me. It might be sports. It might be culture. It might be whatever. Normally it's politics because that's one of my, great interests in life. Or it might be history or it might be whatever. But yeah, whatever hits my brain and I want to talk about it, yeah, we're going to talk about it. And hopefully I can make it fun and entertaining and people are drawn to it and they like it. And, we grow this channel into something great and glorious as time goes by.
There you go, brother. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Tell me when you want me on again. I will make sure I make time for it. Once the holidays are over and done and everybody's got a little more time on their hands. I'm going for big growth in 2025. So doing investor searching now and pitch decks and everything else. So it's going to be crazy, but anytime, man, anytime.
Well, thank you, brother. Absolutely. I will have you back on sometime in the spring for sure. Absolutely.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right.
So before we go, I do have an opportunity for everybody. If you are not aware, I own a business. One of the things we're doing is we're giving back some money. So we have what's called the Deliver Affiliate Program. Very simple. All it is it's a form link. It's a customized link for you. All you have to do is refer people. We close the deals. You get 5% of every single sale. So every single delivery, or if it's a contract base, 5% of the contract for the first year. And all you're doing is sending somebody a link. If you're interested in doing that, potentially making some money and helping a small business grow, hopefully exponentially, that link is also down in the bottom. Set up a time to talk. We'll go over everything. And if you think it works, let's get it done. So with that said, and again, Brian, thank you so much. Everybody go sub to him on YouTube. How far away are you from your goal now?
26 and I hit 1,000. Yep. That's it.
Go create 5 or 6 accounts, all new Google accounts. They're free. Just keep hitting the follow button. Let's get them there. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Brian, stay in. We'll say proper goodbyes after the fact. And everybody else, catch you in the next one.
See you later.